Good evening, everyone. This is Radio Free Mormon. That's Bill Reel. Welcome to the Mormon Newscast. You'll see it is just Bill. It is just I. There is no third party on the screen. There is no Rebecca here. There was a Rebecca here up until a couple of minutes before the show was scheduled to begin. And then Rebecca first froze and then disappeared. It's kind of like Bewitched. Do you ever see Bewitched, that old comedy from the 60s, Bill? I guess you have. Yes. Sometimes she pops in, sometimes she pops out. Rebecca has popped out, and we're going to have to wait and see if she pops in because we're hoping so. We waited as long as we thought we should after the regular starting time. But anyway, let's all just send positive wishes her way, and I'm sure that will help. All right, here is the show for tonight on the Mormon Newscast. It is June 15th, 2026. That was June 15th, by the way. Kyle McKay apologizes. That's my former missionary companion. Official apology. It was in writing on paper with a what is it called? The heading at the top, Bill?
Church letterhead.
Letterhead. Yes, at the head of the letter. With letterhead, which was apparently missing from the excommunication letter sent to Landon Brophy. But this one is official. And it's signed, and it's from Kyle McKay. We are going to go over that and talk about things that haven't been talked about and touch on the things that have been, because I know that I've talked about this on 4 different podcasts so far. But this apology was last Wednesday on June 10th. It became leaked as of Friday, June 12th, and we did a special RFM that morning to cover it. And then we talked about it some more that evening, along with reactions to it and fallout from it. The other stories are the LDS Christian question, back in the limelight. Are those Mormons Christian or are they not? By the way, our getting through a number of these stories will depend on whether Rebecca shows up again. And if she's not, what do you think, Bill? You think we should go through her stories? I don't think so. What do you think?
No, and I don't know that we could anyway. We might be able to go like, oh, there's this general thing that happened, but we wouldn't know the specific details that she's gone and gotten on these stories.
Okay, very good. All right, so more Mormon sex abuse. Bill is a true prophet. The return of Michelle Stone and 132 problems. You remember that person who just went silent and went dark? Was that about a year ago? Under threat of excommunication. She's one of the main proponents of the polygamy deniers. Well, apparently she's back now. She says she's moved. Maybe she's gotten a more malleable stake president or something. I don't know. We'll have to see how this plays out. Mormon podcaster Shane Baldwin excommunicado. Curtin and McConkie lawyer claims he can be objective. Yeah, right. The word Mormon is no longer Satan's victory. By the way, that Curtin McConkie lawyer claims it can be an objective story. I think is that yours or is that Rebecca?
That's me.
Oh, good, because I'm kind of hacked off about that. That really bugs me as a lawyer. The word Mormon is no longer Satan's victory. Sheri Dew doesn't want you to go to the gym. Question mark? CSAM, which stands for Child Sex Abuse Material. Judge Kevin Christensen, remember him? We covered the story when it broke. We covered it when he pleaded guilty. And we're going to cover the sentencing, which happened last week as well. He's the guy who, in concert with the fire department chief in the small town of Tremonton, were combining their powers to exchange and potentially sexually abuse kids and exchange material of that, pictures and video. Pickleball player in a pickle. Fifth Sunday material. And an update on the Clayton Journals. I know that one is yours, Bill, and I'm looking forward very much to seeing that. Here is a slide that Rebecca had put in. She wanted to make a notice, and I think it's appropriate that there was a Mormon missionary elder who had passed away. It was Elder Damien Mununga, I think. This is from Copperbelt Stake of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints in Kitwe, Zambia. Are you able to read that, Bill? It's a bit small for me.
I can. It's with deep sorrow that the Copperbelt Stake presidency in the Zambia Lusaka Mission Presidency announced the passing of Elder Damian Munanga, a full-time missionary of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Elder Damian Munanga, a member of the Bulangelo branch, was serving in the Twapia ward of the Zambia Lusaka Mission. You sure you couldn't read it, or is it just you wanted me to make a fool of myself reading all these words I don't know?
You're doing a great job.
All right, great. At the time of his passing, he passed away on the evening of 13 June 2026, so just 2 days ago. We extend our sincere condolences to his family, relatives.
Oh, just that
friends.
stuff.
Oh, sorry.
No details about his passing.
Yeah.
You know, just the regular boilerplate at the end. Got it. All right. Thank you very much, Bill. And I mean that. Okay, so here we go to my former mission companion, my training missionary, Kyle McKay. It was Sunday. It was June 7th. It was 2026. And as I was preparing for this today, it suddenly hit me that something else famous happened on June 7th of 1844. This was. You remember what that was, Bill?
I don't think they apologized for this either.
No, they've admitted to everything that's in it, but I don't think they've apologized for it. You're right. So it was another June 7th, but this one was in 2026. And my companion gave the following. Now, I'm so sick of watching this and playing it. I'm not going to do the grasshopper incineration part, okay? Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply put this up here, and I've already advanced to a minute and 8 seconds into it. So we're just going to have the minute where he talks about the racial stuff, put this in context, and then I think and hope that this will be a place that you can go to get the full story from its inception.
So I'm grateful for this light. I'm especially grateful that we could sing This Little Light of Mine. That's a song where white people try to sing like black people. And it's our hymn, but I want you to know that we sang it in our ward. I happen to be visiting our ward because I don't get to go to my home ward, and we sang it for intermediate or something hymn. And I'm sitting next to our second counselor there on the stand, and he's singing This Little Light of Mine, I'm gonna let it shine. And I went, hey, dude, I wanted to turn to him and say, you know you're white. And he was saying, no, I'm an African slave is what I am. And I'm singing Swanee River. And anyway, I'm so glad it's in our hymn book. It does make you move just a little bit. And then there's another hymn in there that makes you move even more. I'm going to live so God can use me. I like that one. I'm grateful that we can rejoice in our music.
There we go. Okay. I really didn't want to play that again. Hopefully I'll never have to play it again. But on the other hand, it's important that we play it again to establish the record. Okay. So we have that happen. And then let me go ahead. I'm going to take this one down and I'll put the other one. I can move that one easier. Thank you, Bill. So that evening, we did a special RFM. It was me and Rebecca Bibliotheca. And we also got on the fly, incredibly, Summer Rain Barrett and a guy who's a friend of mine who calls himself Black Priesthood when he shows up on the internet in order to preserve the privacy of his own name. So that was then. Then what happened was the following Monday, June 8th, we covered this story on the newscast a week ago tonight. Then on Wednesday, June 10th, Kyle McKay dates his apology, which he sends to the state president. Okay. This was at a state conference in Oklahoma. He sent it to that state president. This is what it said. By the way, just to be clear, he wrote it on June 10th, which was a Wednesday, or at least it's dated on June 10th, which is a Wednesday. It didn't get leaked until Friday, 2 days later. It might have been the night before, but it was late. All right. Dear President Mendenhall, at the beginning of my remarks this past Sunday in the Yukon, Oklahoma State Conference, I made a poor attempt at humor around the singing of This Little Light of Mine. My words have caused offense and injury and put a blight on an otherwise wonderful weekend. I deeply regret saying what I said and apologize for pain, offense, or embarrassment that I have caused anyone in your stake or beyond. I pray that Jesus, who descended below all sin and error, will somehow help heal wounds I may have caused, and in the process, give me better vision and judgment. Please feel free to share this letter with anyone who might benefit from reading it. All the best. And then it's signed Elder Kyle S. McKay. All right. Do you have any comments about this so far, Bill?
No, it doesn't age well. I mean, I've again heard it several times, and it was just as bad, if not worse, that time around. I'll save remarks for the end. I'm only stammering because I think this is a really big thing coming from a church that's assured us that it does not give or seek apologies.
Yes. Then on June the 12th in the morning, did a special RFM, and that was with Rebecca. Well, she was on the phone, right, from Las Vegas. Yeah, that was kind of a disaster as far as the technical aspect, but we did cover the fact that he had issued the apology, and we read its content. So that was the main point of that. Then that night, last Friday, on Mormonism After Dark, we didn't have Kyle S. McKay on the show, actually, but we did talk about his situation and the apology. And there was all this fallout from people who had been defending Kyle McKay and defending what he had said and going overboard in defending what Kyle McKay said in such a way as to be much more offensive than anything that Kyle McKay said. And we played some examples of that and talked about that together. Great show, I think. Now, this is Kyle McKay. These are some pictures that were available on the church website. Here he is, and he's pointing to a picture that's right here on his cell phone. This is the picture he's pointing to. And this is David O. McKay. And then there's a little boy down here on the left. I'm expecting that's Kyle. And I don't know who the woman and the man are to either side of David O. McKay, but it could be Kyle's parents. Okay, because his last name is McKay. He was a nephew, great nephew, I think, of Kyle McKay, of David O. McKay. And here's another picture. This looks like it was taken probably in the mid 70s. I'm guessing this is Kyle McKay, second from the right. And this looks like a picture that was taken after a long day of bucking hay and finally getting it stored up here. That's my sense from it. Now, he tells a story about how it is that even though he had parents who were alive and a home, presumably, that as a young man, teenager, he spent an enormous amount of time at the home of somebody else. And that somebody else, do you recognize him? Who that guy is next to Kyle?
Yeah, that looks like Marlon Jensen.
It was Marlon Jensen.
Yeah.
Marlon Jensen had a ranch of some sort, and Kyle McKay spent all sorts of time over there working on it. There's a story behind it. I don't know what it is, but there's obviously a story behind it. And then Kyle McKay grows up, gets older, becomes a lawyer, has a career, gets called as a GA, and then, coincidentally, gets called as the church historian, which is what Marlon Jensen had been. There's some few details about Elder McKay. I'm not going to go into those particularly, but you can find that on the internet, and that's in the interest of time, really. Here's the one picture I have of Elder McKay from my mission. I have no idea why I didn't take more pictures of him, but I didn't. The guy in the front, that's his cousin. Elder McKay, obviously, I think it's obvious, is the guy in the background. That's Elder McKay, and we're at some kind of diner in Japan. So this would have been taken in January or February of 1980. And there he is, and there's Elder Sterland. These two are cousins. They knew each other. And I'm there with Brett Weaver. And Brett Weaver, strangely, was my companion at the MTC. We both got transferred to the same district. Brett Weaver got assigned to Elder Sterland, and I got assigned to Elder McKay. And that's how that went. By the way, you know, this all was a shock to me as much as it might have been to anybody else. I mean, I have the highest regard for Elder McKay. Great guy, great missionary, you know, captain of the football team, student body president, Bountiful High School, the whole 9 yards. It's just, This was an unfortunate, very unfortunate incident. And I'm really glad that he apologized. I actually felt tears coming to my eyes when I found out Friday morning that he had apologized. And then, actually, this is going back because this isn't the first time I've talked about Elder McKay. You remember this, don't you, Bill?
Yeah, compelling reasons to doubt. He said it out loud, I think, not knowing what he said, but he was telling the truth.
He was given a talk April 2023, BYU, Idaho, and he actually says that there are compelling reasons to doubt. Are you willing to stare down compelling reasons to doubt and believe anyway, is basically what he said. And so that was an hour and 45 minutes I spent on that. I'll bet he appreciated that. Here's one of the quotes from that. Can you read that one, Bill?
Having perplexing questions that arise from reasons to doubt is not a problem, but please understand, finding answers to these perplexing questions ultimately is not the solution.
Yes, finding answers is never the solution. Usually find the solution by not finding the answers. That's what I think.
Yeah, that's what it means, right? Like the opposite. That's what
sorry,
it means.
what?
That's what it means, is that the opposite then is true, is that not finding the answers to questions is the solution. And in some way, he's telling the truth there too. If staying in the church and continuing to believe is the conclusion one wants.
Well, like I say, I'm really glad that he did that apology, but I don't know, the powers that be, if they're paying attention, may be starting to see a pattern here. A pattern that may not allow him into the apostleship. But this is a McKay. It would be great to have another McKay as an apostle, wouldn't it?
The last one was pretty good.
It was okay. He was McKay. Here's the next one. Oh, compelling reasons to doubt. This is it has the date on it, which was May 8th, 2023. That's when I did my podcast on his speech that was given in April. Yeah. It is a strange twist of fate. In a strange twist of fate, my old missionary companion, Kyle McKay, has become not only a general authority, but also the church historian. Now Kyle gets the chance to have his old missionary companion do a dissection of the talk he gave at BYU, Idaho on April 25th, 2023, a talk many consider to be one of the most controversial talks given by a church leader in recent memory. Hello, Rebecca. It has taken Kyle 43 years to prepare himself to give this talk. It has taken me 43 years to prepare myself to break it down. Hey, Rebecca.
Oh my God, son of a bitch. I was stuck in an update cycle from hell. Ain't nobody got time for that. The only redeeming thing is that I knew you were first and that I might have 40 or 50 minutes in which to try to get my tech together. So I'm here. Continue.
I have been just making stuff up just to fill time until you came on.
Are you saying I'm the only one that really knows what's going on?
Say it's true in the live chat so Rebecca will believe me.
Oh my
No,
God.
the LDS Daily now. We haven't talked about this anywhere.
Yeah.
The LDS Daily was the only paper, digital, to do a faithful response that we are aware of. Doesn't look like it's made the Deseret News or the Church News. It did make the Tribune, but we'll get to that here in a second. So this is LDS Daily. Everything you need to know about the controversy surrounding Elder Kyle S. McKay's comments.
Everything.
And then you go down in the article and hang on, this kills me. After this headline of everything you need to know about the controversy surrounding Kyle S. McKay's comments, they tell you they're not going to include the clip. Hey, Rebecca, you brought this to my attention. Do you want to read? Can you read this part? Are you able to?
Yeah, I think so. It says, let's see, a note about the video. Yeah, this just struck me as, oh my goodness. Because the article is intended to encourage contemplation and thoughtful discussion rather than amplify a circulating clip, we are not embedding the video here. So they're not going to include it with the article. However, readers who wish to view the remarks in full may follow this link and consider them directly. And the link takes you to generally unquotable.
Yes,
and it's funny to me because her title up there is just like, hear these racist remarks from a church authority.
It's much worse.
It couldn't be worse. But what I think perhaps is that these faithful readers will click on that, see that, and instantly click away. They will never actually hear the words of Kyle McKay.
Well, you may be right. Perhaps it's the technology. Perhaps they don't have the ability to embed videos in their news articles. Oh, wait a second. Just a little bit further down in the same article, they do embed a video. Oh, it's of somebody singing This Little Light of Mine, apparently with the Mormon Tabernacle Choir, soon to be renamed as. So they can embed videos. They just didn't choose to do that one. In the days since the recording began circulating, now this was interesting. This is still in this LDS Daily Faithful because they want to throw shade. I think I'm using that slang term correctly. On his apology as to whether it's even real. They take a whole paragraph to do this. In the days since the recording began circulating, an apology attributed to Elder McKay has also appeared online. Okay. But it goes on. The document appears to be on church letterhead and is dated June 10th, 2026. But its authenticity has not been independently verified by Elder McKay, the church, or another reliable source in a position to verify it. WTAF? What do you make of that, Bill?
Isn't LDS Daily connected to the church? I mean,
it's a very faithful website.
Yeah, don't you think they could get an answer if they just reached out and asked? Isn't that what news entities do if there's any uncertainty? And I'll just say this too, and you go back to the previous slide, well, two back. This is the same way the church operates. It, on the outside, says it would love to encourage contemplation and thoughtful discussion of things like church history, but it then doesn't give us the church history, which I think is strange. And so if you really want people to contemplate and be thoughtful about what was said and to consider whether it hurt people, you probably ought to just put the video and let people hear the tone, delivery, and words that Elder McKay delivered.
It's an interesting choice. Did you have any thoughts about this, Rebecca? This thing where it's like they're trying to say, well, we're not even sure if he really wrote it, as if the church wouldn't have come forth and said it's a forgery if he hadn't.
Yeah, because I will say I received, can you hear me? Am I cutting you off? Can you hear me? Okay. I received the email. I'm the one that received it first on like Thursday afternoon or Thursday evening, right? And it was forwarded from the stake. It has all the earmarks of really being from a stake. It's from a person in the stake that had the conference, and it had the attachment by Elder McKay. So unless it's an extremely elaborate hoax with the email addresses correctly using the church email and the stake email, unless that's what it is, I think that it must be authentic.
Well, obviously it is. Obviously. I mean, remember what happened when Streeter released that fake apology about the priesthood ban several years ago? How long did it take the church to come out and say, that is not from us?
Right.
It was very fast, is my recollection. All right. So no. This is real. This is real. But the interesting thing to me is they want to hold out this possibility that it's not, as if it might be a bad thing. I don't know. But you're right, Bill. This is a faithful rag. And why don't they just pick up the phone and call the freaking church and ask them if it's real? Because you don't get that kind of access to the church, even if you're a faithful rag. Now, this is something that Anonymous had written, and I'm going to ask Bill if you can read this, because I can't vouch for this. I have heard things like this in a couple of different places from people that are similar. Can you read this? It's a suggestion that maybe this wasn't the first time Kyle said something like this.
Unfortunately, this was not the first time he had made remarks such as this. While at a state conference in California, he referred to the same song and made some comments that were uncomfortable to myself, my family, and fellow African-American members. In his attempt to be funny, he missed the mark. Perhaps in his future addresses, he can forgo the humor. It seems to be misguided and concentrate on the spirit guiding him. The rest of his remarks were marvelous, but unfortunately were overshadowed by his offensive remarks.
There was another one that was similar to this, but saying that it had happened in St. George. Do you remember that, Rebecca?
Yes, I do. And I'm sorry to say that I may be having more technical difficulties. So I think I'm being a distraction now. So I think I'm just going to have to log out. I'll text you guys about what I'm going to do next. So, because I think I'm glitching.
Yeah. Thanks, Rebecca.
Yeah.
Just so you know, we can hear everything you're saying.
Sorry about that.
Now.
But yeah, he had said the same thing about the same song. You can. Okay, because you guys sound like robots. Well, then I'll just keep talking. Yeah, somebody had mentioned in some comments that he had said the same thing about that song and said something like, let's sing this like, the people who would sing it that way, whatever he said. He made the same kind of comment, kind of that this is a different kind of a song that is in our white hymn book, sort of a kind of a tone. So I don't know. Maybe it's just something that he likes to bring up with the new songs that are in there. I don't know.
Can I add something here, RFM, which is, the fact that he's commenting on the same song at multiple conferences. Again, he's the presiding general authority at that conference. He gets to dictate what music we sing. He's the one who chooses those things, I think. At least
he has a veto power, but I don't know how much they really involve themselves in those kind of things.
I'll say that when general authorities go to places, it reminds me of the Elder Holland and the dog story, the missionary going to another area and he meets his brother and the dogs. That story had been told by multiple general authorities at multiple places. Elder Holland himself had repeated the story multiple times. I just want to note that it seems to be the habit of general authorities when they go out amongst the people, they take the same 2 or 3 stories with them everywhere they go.
Yes. And you're suggesting that he could have put his thumb on the scale to have this song played so he could tell his joke. Oh, it's possible.
It might be his shtick.
You know what I mean? He would have gotten better at it, if he had practice.
It might be something that gets laughs. It might be his shtick, or he thinks it is.
Yeah. Well, this was from the Tribune that went up on the 13th, I think it was. I deeply regret saying what I said. A high-level LDS church leader apologizes for offensive remarks. That's the headline. I mean, I don't think that Henry B. Eyring, when he went out to Mountain Meadows, he stopped short of apologizing, didn't he?
He expressed regret.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a fine line.
So, this is a remarkable story in more than one way. Oh, look. The Salt Lake Tribune knows how to embed it in the story. This is a picture of where they embedded it in their story, unlike the Latter Daily. Now, this was a couple of quotes that I thought were significant and I wanted to share with the audience as we come to the close on this story. Melody Jackson, a doctoral candidate at University of Maryland, it says University Maryland, who self-identifies as post-Mormon, wrestles with questions of race in the church as part of her research. This from the Trib article. Though personal accountability is always necessary and admirable, Elder McKay must understand that this blight of racism is institutional, Jackson said. It follows a long pattern of the LDS Church taking sacred Black spiritual and cultural practices, be it music, food, or hair, and turning them into caricatures, racist humor, or entertainment for mostly white audiences. And then this other quote from another individual, Marquita Elliott, a Black Latter-day Saint living in Lehigh, likewise viewed the misstep as one in a long list, warning that comments like McKay's undermine the church's bridge building efforts with the Black community, including its partnership with the NAACP. I wonder what they thought about this. We're a group of people who claim to be committed to the work, Elliott said. We seem to consistently give the mic to people who do extraordinary harm. Your thoughts, and if we could start with Rebecca.
Yeah, I don't think we've ever seen somebody who's so high up in the church offer something that is this close to an apology. Some people have sort of dissected the apology and said, he's really kind of just saying, I'm sorry that, you found this uncomfortable and were hurt, and let's let Jesus heal everyone. So, but I think he is attempting to make an apology. My question is, had this not been made public by whoever did that, would he have apologized to the stake? Would, after he finished his remarks and went home, would he have gone, you know what? I think that was too far. Would he have written a letter to the stake? Because remember, the first part of it is the letter to President Mendenhall to be sent out to everyone in the stake, and then it includes his apology. Would that ever even have been sent if it had not been made public somehow?
No.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
I mean, that seems obvious to me.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's a necessity. And I also question, did he decide to do that on his own, or did he get some directive from higher up saying, this is a bad look, you're going to have to just apologize personally, and let's try to, put this behind us. I don't know what I think about that either.
Bill?
Yeah, in a church that is run essentially by white men now and white men all the way back to Joseph Smith, in a church that has had a racist past of prohibiting people of color of enjoying the full blessings of its gospel, in a church that allows its current prophet, when he was an apostle, to go to the B1 conference, which was a celebration of how far we had come, and for him to have made it part of his presentation to tell everyone in the crowd that the ban was of God, even if we can't figure out why we came up with those theories. In a church like that, you're going to have to get used to racism showing up on a regular and consistent basis, because this is a racist institution from its founding to its present moment, and it doesn't want to do the work to move past it, to say it's sorry, to make the necessary changes, and create a culture and a leadership that is something other than old white men.
Mhm. I like the way you put that. You started off with in a church that is run, and I started thinking, what if you said that in that movie guy voice? In a church that is run by white men, going back to Joseph Smith. Okay, these are the things that occur to me. All right, there's actually a little bit more to this, a little bit more to the fallout. Now, this is from this is on the Mormon Stories podcast community. My goodness, hundreds, if not thousands of people must have seen this already. Well, John Hadjicek, and I hope I'm mispronouncing that, weighed in on the side of Elder McKay and went so far in his defense that he ended up committing a grosser crime. And Brandy Farrell Heppier is responding to something that he had said. This is all I'm clipping, okay? If you want, I expect it's still all over there. Maybe it's not. I don't know. Maybe he took it down. She says, "Oh, my sweet friend, this is not manufactured controversy," because that's what he'd called it. "I'm so sorry that you felt it important to say this. I see this all the time when white people try to state their joke or comments that downplay racism or another race's experience. The bottom line is he will never be in a spot where a comment, even to another white person, on what not to appropriate is appropriate. Know your lane, stay out of any other. That's the bottom line, especially to leaders in a global church. Just know that you don't know. No, just know that you don't, nor ever will you know. Just know that you don't know, nor ever will you know." Okay, so that's what Brandy had said to him. Here's what John Hadjicek comes back with. "Hey, bigot, I've never been part of an organized church, but I've been a Black Panther. Don't stereotype."
Can I jump in here for a second, RFM? This is John Hadjicek, who is known a bit in our community. I've run into him several times going back probably more than a decade at this point.
Mhm.
He has a history of claiming that he has historical items, that he's really cool, interesting things that if he had, it would be game-changing for Mormon history. He claims he has them. Then he notifies everybody he's got them. They're going to come out shortly, and then they never show up. And it's happened at least a half dozen to a dozen times.
Wow.
So he claims to be a collector of Mormon artifacts. He's never, ever produced, as far as I know, anything of substance along the lines of what he says. And so I have no trust or believability that he, as a white man, was a Black Panther at any point in his life. And until he could prove otherwise, I don't believe a word that comes out of his mouth.
So everybody knows, I want to hear your thoughts too, Rebecca. So everybody knows Summer Rain did a great job of reviewing his comments in this regard. Although he didn't, the comments that he had made as of that time, I don't think were this direct, saying he was a Black Panther. You're saying his dad was kind of like a president or something, and then that kind of blew up when Summer researched it. But this is, I think this is a little bit over the line. What do you think, Rebecca?
Yeah, I sent Summer the research that I had done on this too, because I was curious. He had posted some newspaper clippings, and yeah, it looks like his dad, I believe in Minnesota, was a chairman of an organization, a Freedom Foundation, that was backing a Black Panther candidate. So it was a little convoluted how it was, but he definitely was involved. So yeah, and I know John too, and he does have a pretty extensive collection. He is connected. I know that he was the one that was aware of the Kirtland Temple sale before anybody else. So, he's definitely a player in certain circles. I was surprised to hear him weigh in this way, but there were others weighing in like this about the apology, saying that we, those of us who were the first ones, not the apology, but the original remarks, we, the first ones to put it out, were the ones causing the problem. We were stirring the pot. We were fabricating drama. That was a sentiment that was out there that I was really surprised at. And then you would have people like what you just read jumping in and saying, "Oh no, no." So it was interesting to see that reaction, I thought.
Well, I think that covers the story in as quick a time as I can, about half an hour. And now I'm going to turn it over to another great story about this whole question of whether Mormons are Christian has resurfaced in the most unusual and unlikely of places.
It has. It's been a really interesting week with events, and then aftermath, and then responses, and then aftermath after that, the aftermath. So I will say up front, Bill, if I start glitching, I'm still seeing some glitches. Please just bump me out, because I don't want to go on and figure out that nobody can hear me, right? What a nightmare. So yeah, my story, as I was going to discuss it and still am, was about kind of the Streisand effect with this Mormon moment where you have the, military not designating the LDS Church as Christian. I covered that last time. Huge pushback. Utah senators, we are Christian, and so then the military takes Christian off of every denomination designation. This is part of a list of 200 being whittled down to 30. And, I kind of alluded to last week, I said, my co-host Landon's in the military. He's explaining to me about chaplains and how the LDS run their own services. They are separate from other Christian services. I just touched the surface of that. Well, I've gotten some more information about this, so I want to share at the top of this, because I think this was a huge knee-jerk reaction from the LDS Church. This is not even what having Christian in front of your denomination even meant in the first place. And they inadvertently put themselves back in the spotlight and having everybody debating, are they Christian or not? So somebody else connected to the military sent me this more clear explanation about what those designations really meant. And I think you're going to find this absolutely fascinating. None of this ever needed to happen. Nobody was ever saying you're not a Christian church. So this person says the LDS Church missed such a fantastic PR moment instead to play the persecution card. It actually makes them look really ignorant. The point of the labeling, putting Christian, right, is that those Christian churches have basic religious logistical needs that the military provides: altars, hymn books, paid organists, altar fabric, communion supplies. Then each subcategory gets even more specific with their needs, right? We're talking about supplying what they need to worship as someone in the military. The military doesn't care if you're a Roman Catholic and believe that communion turns into the body of Christ, or if you're Protestant and believe it's symbolic. The military only cares about ordering and having the wafers, the chalice, the cups available for religious Christian services. The LDS Church is 100% self-sufficient. And I tried to talk about this last week, but I don't think I was expressing it quite right. We don't even need a chapel to meet in, because the LDS wards run the services for the military. We let the other Christian churches deal with the scheduling for that. LDS sacrament services usually meet in a tent or other available spaces, very separate. All sacrament needs, music, come follow me, manuals, etc., is all provided by the church headquarters military department directly. They have their own department in the LDS Church that provides everything anyone in the military would need to worship. And, like my co-host Landon, he was like a leader, was he in the bishopric or something of a military branch? I think that's why he ended up being a high priest at age 25. LDS was separate from the Christian needs label. Now that's important. The Christian needs label, what they need, showing that we need no supplies from the military. We need no special food, no clothing, no religious materials, no chalice, no wafers, no tablecloth, right? I mean, that's kind of badass and totally showing the self-sufficient values we strongly teach. Like I said, this is an LDS person in the military explaining this. Also, we don't recognize the authority of any other church, so we're not great at commingling with other religious rites. And I explained that. Nobody else could run an LDS service for us. We must have somebody who has the priesthood. So very separate in our needs and our authority. The list, Christian, right? Christian, Seventh-day Adventist, Christian, Jehovah's Witness, Christian, Lutheran. That list isn't about people's beliefs. It's about what the military needs to provide. There is a chapel tithes fund that all Christian churches donate to pool funds for hymn books, paid organists, etc. They all put into this. The Mormon church does not pay into this fund or take anything out of it. They are self-sufficient. It could have been a really cool moment. Too bad we all got triggered. So I'm just going to ask you really quickly, what do you think about that? Do you think this whole hubbub even needed to happen? This is what they were saying. The designated list makes it easier for the military to supply what these denominations need. Mormons don't need any of that, so they're just on a line by themselves. RFM, what do you think?
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. I don't really know. Maybe that's what it was. All I know is that there is a certain segment of the populace out there that consistently says that what Kyle McKay said in the same week, by the way, that what Kyle McKay said was no big deal, but the DOD list was the end of the world.
What do you think about this, Bill? If this is right, and several military people have reached out to me, none of this hubbub ever had to happen at all. It was not, it was just saying, you're good? You're good? Yeah, we're good. That was all it was saying.
Wasn't it Mike Lee who got involved in this?
But yes, and Cox, they all went nuts. Why are we not Christian? That's what I'm saying. The knee-jerk reaction to this is not what was happening. They overreacted. Hence my picture here. We are Christian.
Yeah, it just seems like to even get involved, like you've got so many things on your plate. The world is chaotic. There are tons of things going on. And for Cox and Mike Lee to go, you know how I'm going to spend a chunk of my day is I'm going to go see if I can raise some holy hell about this and get this changed. And it's like, if that's the things you think are priorities. And by the way, I've always felt like Mike Lee is really bad at figuring out the right priorities. If this is where you spend your time, like maybe you're not the right person to be in government trying to change the world for better when this is the kind of stuff that takes your focus.
Well, I agree with you in principle, Bill. I do think it is rather important to his constituents.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. You know who is important to both of them in this state. You know who they have to jump up for. I think if there was some kind of misdesignation with the Hindu community in Utah on that list, they would not have been as vocal or as active in trying to get it changed, which they did. And this is what we're going to talk about.
Don't true Christians just turn the other cheek?
Well, that's the question. Are Mormons Christian? And what I'm going to say is this Pandora box has been opened again. As much as we demanded to be returned to that Christian designation, it opened up again a spotlight on social media. Are Mormons Christian? And there is so much going back and forth. No, they're not. Yes, they are. Again, I'm sure the LDS Church does not want this discussed, but it is being discussed. And it was sort of their own senators, the governor, the members that kind of opened this up again by posting it everywhere. We are Christian. So here's an article. A Pentagon list overhaul puts Mormon church's Christianity identity back in the spotlight. This is exactly what we're talking about. Here are other headlines. Pentagon reclassifies Mormon as not Christians, but to MAGA evangelicals, they will always be heretics. These are the headlines that are out there. Do you think the LDS Church wants these headlines out there? No. But by causing that uproar about the designation, these are the headlines that are here. Pete Hegseth, controversial pastor, says Mormons practice non-Christian faith after backlash over Pentagon's reorganized religions list. Another article and another one, why most Christians don't consider the LDS Church Christian. I just grabbed a handful. These are all over the place. These were not here the week before. These are here now because of the LDS Church's reaction to the DOD list. So there was a good article in the Tribune, Tamara, my favorite reporter, right? And her article says why many evangelicals view the LDS Church as a cult and why it's unlikely to change. Again, the LDS Church does not want these headlines out there, I'm sure, but here they are. So I'll summarize the article really quick because it was really good. The Pentagon's classification controversy may have been resolved administratively, but it revealed something much bigger. The long-standing effort to gain recognition as Christian from evangelical circles remains unsettled, and the church may ultimately face more significant questions about identity, political alliances, and its place in an increasingly diverse religious landscape. They're on the map again with this question. One of the more interesting takeaways from the Pentagon's recent religious affiliation controversy is that the debate over whether LDS Latter-day Saints are considered Christian may not be the biggest challenge facing the church. While Utah political leaders successfully push back, as Bill pointed out, after the DOD initially separated the LDS Church from Christian denominations, the episode highlighted a deeper reality. Many evangelicals still do not view Mormonism as part of traditional Christianity, and that disagreement is unlikely to disappear simply because of a bureaucratic change, a push of a button. In fact, now it's even more highlighted as people discuss it. That article that title I showed you before, Why Most Christians Don't Consider the LDS Church Christian, little summary of that says a central argument may be made by many traditional Christians is theological rather than cultural. While Latter-day Saints affirm Jesus Christ as Savior and place him in the center of their worship and the name of their church, they reject key doctrines established in historic Christian creeds, particularly the Nicene understanding of the Trinity. Latter-day Saints' teachings about God, Jesus Christ, human exaltation, and additional scriptures differ significantly from the beliefs held by Catholic, Orthodox, and most Protestant churches. Because of these differences, many theologians and clergy regard the faith as separate religious traditions rather than a branch of Christianity. That was a nice way to say it. Some of these other articles are a lot more harsh. So the controversy also raises questions about whether the Latter-day Saints gain anything by seeking this validation from outside religious groups. This is a good question. Should they even be trying to do this, leaving all of us scratching our head going, what is happening to our church that we grew up in? Many observers noted that the church has spent decades emphasizing its Christian identity, but acceptance ultimately remains in the hands of other faith traditions that use different theological standards. From this perspective, the more important question is not whether outsiders grant the Christian label, but whether the church members are comfortable defining their faith on their own terms. And here again, I'll ask you in a minute, RFM, I put a picture of that cross on Temple Square in front of the temple as they try so hard. We report on this a lot, to be Christian. What were you going to say, RFM?
Rebecca, the church that I was baptized into in 1978 was more than comfortable. In fact, it was proud to define their faith on their own terms. And something drastic has happened in the intervening 48 years.
Yeah, and much more recently, it's taken off at light speed, I think. Any thoughts on that really quick, Bill, as I wrap up this article?
I was just looking to see if Jesus ever tried really hard to convince people that he was the Son of God, and he often would say it according to the scriptures, but there's not really any instances of him fighting with somebody. I am the Son of God, and it's a strange thing that here's these, Mormons who, again, when I was Mormon, I considered myself Christian, but it's a strange thing then to go to war with people over whether they label you the way you want to be labeled. Maybe just show up and be Christian. And in that way, Mormonism still has a lot of work to do.
That's it. And I'm going to go through in just a slide or two. There are quotes where past prophets and leaders were very comfortable not being seen exactly as Christian. We were a peculiar people. We were different from other Christians. I've talked before about, to my mom, the word Christian was sort of a dirty word. She would wrinkle her nose up a little bit. Well, though they're Christian, she would say about my friends when they'd invite me to a Bible class or something like that. They're Christian. They're different from us. And we were proud, right? So it's very different today, I think. The article goes on. Another theme emerging from the discussion is the risk of tying religious identity too closely to political coalitions. The Pentagon episode occurred within a conservative political environment that many Latter-day Saints have generally supported. Yet, when the classification issue surfaced, some members were surprised, like shocked, I think, really disappointed to discover that political allies were not always theological allies. The incident served as a reminder that shared political goals do not erase long-standing doctrinal disagreements, right? you guys aren't Christian. I mean, I'm showing you only a fraction of the articles that have popped up just this week. And finally, it says the dispute may also signal broader shifts in American religion. Surveys and demographic trends show that younger Latter-day Saints are often less politically aligned with the evangelical conservatism that previous generations, as the church continues to grow internationally and become more diverse, maintaining a distinct identity. It may prove more important than fitting neatly into the existing American religious categories. The Pentagon controversy briefly focused attention on a label, but it also exposed larger questions about the church's future's place within American Christianity and the religious right coalition. And I had to put this picture up when we talk about a global identity. This just came out this week. The church has baptized, it said 26 young men. These are all children. It's very interesting. We've touched on this before, but here they are on the global stage baptizing 26 children. Good for them. So I will say again that, we've been pretty open in the past. President Hinckley says when he's asked whether Latter-day Saints believe in the traditional Christ, he says, no, I don't. The traditional Christ of whom they speak is not the Christ of whom I speak. Well, that's almost word for word, but a lot of evangelicals say about Mormons. Here's Hinckley saying it. For the Christ of whom I speak has been revealed in this dispensation of the fullness of times. So if an evangelical looks up this quote, they're going to go, yeah, that's pretty much it. That's what I've always said. You have Brad Wilcox over here on the right saying his famous quote, it's what most people in the world are doing. They're playing church, right? How insulting. They're playing church. In our church, we don't play church, right? We're the real church. And then, of course, you have Joseph Smith multiple times saying all other abominations or creeds are abominations. So you can't blame people for kind of saying, hey, you know what? I don't think you are what you are. But the point of my whole segment here is just that this is back in the forefront again, because we made so much noise about that designation and demanding it. And now people are questioning it again. Final thoughts, Bill first, and then RFM.
Hey, I wanted to say something before it goes too far.
Go ahead.
I wasn't interrupting. I was being good.
You are good. Go ahead.
They're playing church. In our church, we don't play church. Said by a guy who looks like one of the banana splits.
Oh, gosh. I knew that would come up.
Okay, Bill.
Yeah. You just can't let that go.
No, never.
You put up on the screen here 3 instances where Mormonism is, at least in part, disagreeing with the rest of the Christian world on whether it worships the same Jesus. And in 2 of these quotes, I think are quite offensive. Joseph Smith and Brad Wilcox. And so for a religion that goes out of its way, Bruce R. McConkie made numerous comments that could have also been used as well. Yeah. For a church that puts up tons of teachings and comments from its leaders that are insulting to the greater Christian world, it's sort of a strange thing. And again, Mormonism, this isn't its first time doing this. Its persecution complex in New York and Ohio and Illinois often came at telling the story that it was just doing God's work and being persecuted, when in reality it was a major contributor, going so far as creating Danites, etc. The church is in large part responsible for the image that it has in the world. People don't just go, there's a great church, let's just make fun of it. No, people see in your church really unhealthy things. They see you doing things that don't match up with other Christian theology, and they deem you not worthy of the Christian label for lots of reasons. If Mormonism wants to change that, it's going to have to do something other than its status quo.
Yep, I agree. Back to you, RFM.
There apparently was a huge blowback from this controversy, and I'm just surprised that somebody in there couldn't see around this corner.
Yeah, it didn't have to happen. This did not have to be brought up, and I'm thinking these articles are going to continue. They're discussing it in all circles now.
Very good. Thank you, Rebecca, for that story. Next one is coming up, and I had to laugh when I saw this slide. This is going to be Bill's story, I think, with the weekly Mormon CSA segment. What is that about?
Yeah, because at the beginning of the year, I said we are going to have week in and week out tons more child sex abuse in the LDS Church. And part of me was like, we're going to have a lot of it. I didn't actually anticipate having it every week, but I think here we are. It's June 15th, and I think we've had 1 week where we did not have a child sex abuse story in the news that had to do with Mormonism. So I thought it would be appropriate to note that it might as well just have a weekly segment, and maybe we can just reuse this thumbnail every week. So the church claims it's the gold standard. So this is the gold standard weekly Mormon child sex abuse segment. And with that, I'll go into the story. Jared Buckley, a former director of leadership, director of the Leadership Learning Academy in northern Utah, and a former LDS missionary. That's a picture of him there in the bottom right. He served in the Philippines from 2004 to 2006, has pleaded guilty to multiple federal child sexual abuse material charges. And this story is crazy. Buckley was arrested in April 2025 while reportedly serving as a stake young men's president in the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'm curious, do they want us using the full name of the church in these kinds of stories? I think we should. He is scheduled to be sentenced on June 17th of 2026. Now listen to this. According to court filings in Buckley's own plea agreement, he admitted to producing, distributing, and possessing child sexual abuse material. Prosecutors say he created and administered a private, encrypted online group specifically for parents to share abusive material involving their own daughters under the age of 10. He headed up a group of parents willing to put their own kids in harm's way with all of this stuff. In his plea, Buckley acknowledged creating recruitment materials for the group. Every member a missionary is what he believes about the group he created, and he was just doing the missionary thing in this group, implementing verification procedures for prospective members. So he was creating the system to ensure that law enforcement couldn't get in, but get in they did. And encouraging participants to produce specific types of abusive content that he wanted to view. Federal prosecutors described the group as an international network dedicated to the sexual exploitation of children. The investigation began after law enforcement in New York traced the distribution of CSAM to an internet account linked to Utah. Search warrants executed in April 2025 led investigators to Buckley, and forensic examination of his device reportedly uncovered numerous files depicting child sex abuse. Authorities also cited concerns about Buckley's position as a charter school administrator and his involvement with youth organizations in the LDS Church and elsewhere, arguing that he posed a significant danger to the community. While investigators initially explored whether the case involved the production of abusive materials beyond the United States, and despite Buckley's extensive involvement with youth programs, no allegations, I believe, as yet have surfaced connecting his crimes to children at the schools where he worked. Sentencing is expected later this month, and I just want to note, sadly, once again, the Holy Ghost and the spirit of discernment are powerless against such. This is going to continue to happen until the church, and again, this isn't the church had something to do with it. It didn't, as far as we know, happen within the church. What I'm saying is that until the church notifies its members that its prophet, its apostles, its stake presidents, its bishops, and anyone else in between could be just as unhealthy as any other stranger outside the church, we're going to continue without having any safeguards, putting people like this in church leadership. He was a stake young men's president, and this is all the stuff he was guilty of. And look at him. He's got the Mormon glow in his eyes. This is a guy you'd go, oh, that's Brother Buckley. He's dependable. He shows up at everything. He does all the things he's supposed to do. We have to stop in this church believing that just because someone holds a calling, that they're not a risk and we should treat everyone as a stranger that they are. Anyway, thoughts from you guys first, RFM, and then you, Rebecca.
I was going to make the same comment that you made there at the end, Bill. You know, we like to think that we can tell a child molester or someone adjacent or whatever, okay? I don't think we need to draw a whole lot of hard and fast lines here. The CSAM is adjacent to child molestation, okay? And frequently accompanies it. Now, having said that, on Fridays over at the pretrial hearing in Superior Court, we would always use the biggest courtroom available, and we'd pack in all the criminal defendants. They had pews like a church, right, going back, and there'd usually be around 100 of them in there who were charged with something or other. And there were times when there'd be somebody there who was charged with child molestation, and you go, oh yeah, obviously, that's what this guy was charged with. He looks like it. In fact, sometimes it was a game between the defense attorneys and the prosecutors. Can you tell the child molester in the crowd? And then, the prosecutor turn around and go, oh, right there. Yeah. That's what we think they all are like. That's what we tend to think. Okay. I really want you to look at this face, because that is the face of a person who just got done pleading guilty to all of these things that Bill just read, and felony counts, and he's awaiting sentencing. And if that guy is in your church, are you going to trust him? Of course you are, because he looks absolutely trustworthy. He looks like the nicest guy in the world, and maybe in all sorts of other respects he is. All I'm doing is once again trying to let you know that you cannot tell a child molester by looking at them. And frequently, a person who looks like the most innocent and unlikely of people to do this is exactly the one who is.
Yeah, I'm glad you both brought that up, because that is my train of thought too on all of this. And you're right, Bill. We've had multiple stories every week. I think that week we didn't cover something, we just chose not to. There is always something. And, I have the ability, or I tend to be able to find out what callings people have. I'll see them in the news, and I'm always curious if you're arrested for something, especially CSA, are you LDS? Are you in the ward? What are you doing? And some people will say to me, why do you do that? Are you just trying to smear the name of the church? Why do you do that? And I'm like, exactly what you guys just expressed is why I do it. Because I figure if I do it enough, this guy was a primary teacher. This guy was a stake this guy was a young men's leader. If I do it enough, then maybe parents might just get the idea that you do have to be on guard. You do have to be aware. There is not discernment. People are not put in callings because they have been discerned to be trustworthy and amazing. You have to be really careful. And the church is full of children and young parents, and everyone trusts each other and everyone's happy. And so I think if we have these segments and we talk about it, as difficult as it is, maybe one parent will go, you know what, I better watch out. I better just be a little more careful, because the ward is not going to tell them if there's somebody there. We have multiple stories like that are even more horrifying. So none of us are trying to drag the church's name through the mud. None of us are trying to do anything like that. We're just trying to have an awareness, help people have an awareness by showing exactly what you said, RFM. That guy, I would have trusted that guy in the hall. I would have said, great, what a great, yeah, anybody would. So that's all we're trying to point out.
Can I say one more thing? In this space, people in the church, they believe their religion is important to them. It has lots of value, and they want to be treated kindly and fairly about that. They don't want to be mocked or made fun of. And then those of us on this side, like, we have to sometimes wear kid gloves. We're supposed to, because it's in the realm of religion, we have to give a greater amount of benefit of the doubt than what would be normally required out in the world. And I just want to note, again, I don't mean this anything other than the truth. Joseph Smith was a child molester. Joseph Smith did all of the grooming techniques, got multiple children into his home, and took advantage of them in, at the very least, intimate, inappropriate, religious coercion relationships, and almost certainly sexual. If you're a Mormon, and you've grown up all your life in the church believing this man is the founder of your church, on some level, when we're believing, we don't, because of just this instance here, we don't seem to have the skill set because of the need to believe religious things about our founder and the local leaders and the apostles and the prophets. We don't seem to have the tools in our tool bag to recognize child molesters among us, because we believe in this man and don't acknowledge that this man took deep advantage of children, and not just one and not just five, numerous children he took advantage of, and almost certainly in ways that were sexual.
I can't believe you would say that about Joseph Smith. I mean, look at his face.
Yeah.
That's his painting. That's his Ken doll pretty boy painting.
Yes. Well, I think that that guilty plea and what he did, that other guy kind of terminated his career at the charter school. However, speaking of terminateds and terminators, it takes us to our next story from Rebecca.
Isn't that a great thumbnail? I love that. Yeah, I dared to go on a weekend vacation. I stepped away from my podcasting couch on Thursday. Two pretty big things happened: the Kyle McKay apology and Michelle Stone. So I'm glad to have a chance to cover it here. So we all know
one pretty big thing happened.
Okay, I'm just saying things that are notable, things that are interesting, things that make people go, aha. Michelle Stone, who is the creator and host of 132 Problems, where they delve into polygamy. And of course, they are in the camp, the ever-growing camp, that Joseph Smith never practiced polygamy. We don't need to go into all the different reasons. There's so much information behind it on her channel, so many episodes. But months ago, because she's always kind of been in the crosshairs of her local leaders, yeah, everybody keeps saying local leaders, she took everything down. She was told to take everything down, and she took all of her content down. Those of us that are podcasters were like, that is something. I mean, she had quite a body of work, quite a number in the hundreds of episodes, and she took it all down because of these issues. Her membership was being threatened. Like I said, she was in the crosshairs of local leadership, and she took it down. And then suddenly she makes this announcement. I'm back. There she is. She's the Terminator. And I'm just going to kind of read what she said, because I can probably read it faster than the actual episode. She says, pretend I'm Michelle Stone. I'm channeling her voice. It's been quite a while. Hello, everybody. I want to jump on, give you guys a quick update, let you know some of my plans of what to expect. First things, I'm moving on. I will be starting my academic program in the near future. She's working on is it her PhD or her master's? I think her PhD. She would never really say where she was going to be getting this higher degree, but apparently she's moving there. She says she has her housing ready to go. I am moving. So in that process, I am no longer in the same situation I have been. Now that's interesting. To me, that says she believes that by moving away from the stake that is gunning for her and her membership, that she is no longer in that situation. That is not always the case. I look at Natasha Helfer, who moved across state lines, several states, and was still summoned back to Kansas, I think it was, to face discipline. So she seems confident now that she's not dealing with these particular set of leaders now, and maybe roulette will be kind and she'll find a different set where she is.
You might want to double check and see if there's a hold on her records.
Yeah, we talked about that, those little notations, and I'm sure they have a new one for monogamy affirmer / polygamy denier. I'm sure that carries on. Anyway, she says, I am now going to go ahead and put several of my episodes back up. I'm in the process of doing that. Then she goes on and she gives an explanation of what her podcast is, what it was meant to be. Again, it's in the camp of monogamy affirmation. Joseph and Emma were the love story of the century. They were married and there were no other women. Nothing else was going on. So with that being said, she continues. Let me go to the next slide here. I am going to start re-releasing episodes as I can. I can't release them all at once. It's too much, but she's going to start putting everything back out. She may not be able to do a lot of new content because she's going to be in this rigorous academic program, but she says, keep your eyes open. She has some exciting things planned, and she's very excited to be able to put all of her content back up, because I'm telling you, it's a ginormous body of work in this monogamy affirming arena here. She's going to start releasing them here and there throughout the podcast. and kind of stay tuned and find out what's going on. So to me, it's interesting that she feels kind of in the clear right now, because that was always it. She was being hauled in, her membership was being threatened, she was being ordered, not to speak about it, to take her stuff down. She has, she still had her Journal of Mormon Polygamy conference, and she had that incident we reported on where they were not allowed to meet at UVU, but she seems almost like now relieved. A weight has lifted. She's moving away from her ward. Now she feels like she has the green light. And I just don't know, because I see people, they still reach out, and the problems don't go away when your leadership is after you. So I don't know. What do you guys think about this?
Bill?
It's strange. If the church has notified her that she needs to not do this, it seems like she on some level has made peace that no matter what the church does, she's ready to move forward.
Yeah.
And it'll be, you can go to another ward, but the brethren will find you. And just because you have a nice bishop or a nice stake president, that only holds them off for just a little while.
Yeah. And maybe she means she's comfortable and, like you said, has made peace. If she loses her membership, so be it. Maybe that's what she means by moving on. She's at that point.
You would think she could be clearer.
I mean, other polygamy deniers very recently have been excommunicated. Her own producer, Karen Hyatt. So she can't be naive enough to imagine that she's kind of the queen bee, that she would not be somebody of interest.
If she can be naive enough to think that Joseph Smith never practiced polygamy, she's naive enough to believe anything, Rebecca.
Well, she's a lovely person. I always say that.
Yeah.
Yep.
You do always say that.
Little update.
I agree with you. You do always say that.
I do.
Did you want to say anything else about this announcement of a comeback?
No, it's just an update, and she still has not said where she's going to continue with her studies and her academic program, but maybe that'll come out more in the future, and we'll just see, because I'm sure something will happen. I mean, if her content is all back up, and there's Bill's going to talk about some other interesting news in that monogamy affirming camp. Things are heating up. I would think attention and scrutiny is on this group big time.
Yes, I do think that's the case. I think that is one of about 12 different fires the church leaders are having to put out, and they're dawdling around, not doing anything.
Yeah.
Host has muted your screen. Was I muted there?
No. I muted the other slideshow you had because the microphone was on, and
okay.
I was just making sure we didn't have any overlap of sound. So
Thank you so much. I just want to make sure the audience didn't miss any RFM.
Every single drop, right?
And speaking of excommunications for saying crazy stuff, controversial Mormon podcaster Shane Baldwin of Zion Media, this is the fourth Baldwin brother, Shane Baldwin of Zion Media, excommunicated. So this is our good friend Steve Pinecker. You may have heard of him. Have you ever heard of him, Rebecca?
I've completely heard of him. He discovered me. I was on his show as his co-host before I ever had my own show.
It's so funny because when you made the claim about being the first person to receive that apology letter, it reminded me of Steve. And I thought, are you Pineckering us, Rebecca?
No, I'm not, because I was the first person to receive it. So
I think Pinecker should go into the dictionary as a verb, meaning to claim priority, or that you got somewhere first, or that you're the one who discovered somebody else. That's to Pinecker.
And kind of like last time, I used the word Wilcoxing, or to Wilcox, right? Which means somebody that gets up at the pulpit in a religious setting and says something unbelievable.
Very good. Very good. Is this ready to go now, Bill? Have we tap danced enough? Thank you so much. You're the best. So he's making this announcement, I think, today or earlier.
December, I announced that a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, who's a YouTuber, was about to be excommunicated. It was expected to happen this January, but for whatever reason, it was summertime before it happened. And that person was Shane Baldwin of Zion Media. I've been in contact with Shane. This is not surprising. This was somewhat expected. There was some other church discipline issues that were going on. And so it was kind of inevitable that this probably would happen. And Shane expressed to me that he would like to tell his story on the MBR platform. So stay tuned for further updates. Also want to let you know that Jeremy Hoop called me up last night and he gave me some more information about the William Clayton journals. We're going to be doing a special live stream next week about that here at MBR. So stay tuned. Lots of developing stories happening as we speak, and there will continue to be so. So remember, all the voices of the restoration will be heard here on Mormon Book Reviews.
All the grifters of the restoration will be heard here at Mormon Book Reviews. Thank you for that, Steve. So then after that, let me see what happened. I had not even, had I heard of this guy? I don't know, but I've been doing some research on him. He's a very interesting character. And boy, was his excommunication overdue. Oh my gosh, that's all I have to say. So this is the guy right here. This is what he looks like. He's got this radical hair, the radical beard. I'm not sure if I'm the first person to have confused him with Brian Blessed, who may or may not have been the second Doctor Who, as well as appearing in a bunch of other very wonderful performances. But that's Brian Blessed on the right. And this is Shane Baldwin on the left. Now, here's the thing, okay? I'm not sure if this is in the right place now, but let's see. Oh. This is what it is. Down here below, is there any one of you who can actually read that? What's there below? This appeared over on, what was it? It was Ex-Mormon Reddit, and they had embedded this video. They can even embed videos over there, just not the daily place. So, but they're talking about him and talking about the fact that he's got a number of things that are kind of kooky that he believes in and does, okay? And the first thing has to do with this book of scripture, which he adheres to and promotes. It's called the Book of the Nem. By the way, that's how I put it in. This is AI, but I want you to know that I cross-checked everything that's in this for you. The Book of the Nem almost certainly refers to the something completely unintelligible, 2 words, also known as the Mintana Archives or the Book of the High Place. How many of you out there have heard of this before? It is an apocryphal, really, text purported to be an ancient sacred record passed down by indigenous North Americans. Well, that sounds like the Book of Mormon. What the text contains, the Haggath connection. It is presented as a historical and spiritual chronicle of a people who trace their origins back to the journey of Haggath. You remember Haggath, wasn't he in Alma chapter 43? No, 53. No, 63, the last chapter. A shipbuilder mentioned in the Book of Mormon. Indigenous spirituality and healing, the text teach the way. Well, I haven't heard that recently. They teach the way, medicine wheel traditions and a path of governance, and expansion on Mormon lore. The writings expand on the Book of Mormon universe, claiming that figures like Moroni and Corianton traveled north and joined the Nemenha, which I guess was a people. You can tell because it ends with Ha. Had you heard about this before, Bill or Rebecca?
I just let me put myself down there so we're not blocking you out as you're doing the story, but I just put up on the screen a link that people can go to and read it if they want to. If you didn't get bored by the Book of Mormon and the sealed portion by Krishna Melka and the Book of Jerem, there's a guy in Canada who's found some part of the scriptures as well. And then you've got the guys down in Peru who have the sealed portion as well. I think they've been working on it. And if you're not tired of all of that, then you could also go read this one as well.
Yeah, like the children of Aranak, the children of Jeranak. I actually have that book.
I knew it was close, but not exactly.
Yeah, no, exactly. No, I've heard of it because I often will have people personally message me and tell me that I've got everything wrong and I need to read the Book of Aranak.
Really? Nobody corrected me and told me I got anything wrong.
Yeah, and I know. I'm so sorry. I'm trying to get around to all these books of whatever they are. I'm trying really hard. And I will someday, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'm sure. Like, I'm going to read this. Well, the good news is that it's only a volume 1, so there's a volume 2. It's like when you get to the end of a book that was so good, you wish it would just keep going. Well, this one does. So the Origins and Controversy, originally compiled and popularized in the early 2000s by Philip Landis. The text is framed as a translation of ancient records transcribed onto metal plates. I've never heard of that before. And animal hides, allegedly archived in Utah. The texts form the foundation of the Nehemanah Band of the Native American Church, a spiritual movement blending indigenous traditions with these specific writings. I don't know if that is the name of a real tribe of Native Americans. I'm guessing not, but I don't know. Mainstream historians, LDS scholars, and online critics widely categorize the text as a modern, reconstructed spiritual tradition rather than a legitimate ancient antiquity. In other words, it's a fraud. That's a nice way of saying it's a fraud. They even have an article on it at FAIR. Did you know this, Bill?
I've never heard of this until today.
Isn't this incredible? And this guy believes this crap. And so do all the people who follow him, apparently. Okay. And then he also promotes this other thing called this Oracle code. And there's a difference when apparently it's ORAQEL code is how he spells it. But it comes up if you spell it the regular way, ORACLE. It's supposed to give you oracles. He has got AI set up to give his followers, for a price apparently, a patriarchal blessing through AI that he promotes. And then you can get a special song based upon your patriarchal blessing. It's individual to you, also produced by AI. So AI has now become the god of this movement, or at least the tool, the mouthpiece through which God communicates. Although he also communicates, I hear, through the fourth Baldwin brother, Sean. The phrase Oracle Code app in connection with Shane Baldwin refers to the Oracle code, often stylized or referred to as an Oracle app, a spiritual tool and application marketed by Baldwin through his platform, Zion Media. This is what Zion Media is all about. So the Oracle Code tool purpose, it is promoted by Sean Baldwin. It is promoted as a motivational and spiritual tool designed to help users realign their energy, explore personal spirituality, and discover truths about themselves. Custom music. Here's the custom music part. Baldwin utilizes the results of a person's Oracle code to generate custom, personalized songs meant to resonate with the recipient's soul. Now, I know that you're big into music, Rebecca. This must appeal to you.
Yeah, no, my spirit song is September. So I already have my own song, right?
By Earth, Wind, and Fire. I know
By
you
Earth,
mentioned
Wind,
that
and
before.
Fire. That's right. I've already told my kids I want that played at my funeral. I don't know if I have to arrange to die in September or it would be okay just to do it. But I've already have that, in my last wishes. So now, do you know what this is about, though? Mormons are bored out of their minds, with what is available to them. But there is this hint that there's more and there's more mystery. And so someone in the comments said they've seen, decade after decade, these people show up and offer things like this. Sometimes it goes horrifically bad, a Chad Daybell, but Mormons are hardwired for this. There's a mystery, there's more, they're already magical thinkers. So, this is attractive to a certain demographic. And it's interesting that it's through AI. The church has come out recently in the last couple of years, really hammering AI. Be careful. It's not your God. It's not your oracle, maybe. So I can see why people fall for this. They just do. They need something more.
Bill, can you read this last comment up here about the Oracle code, about the platform, and then give us your thoughts?
Sure. The tool is tied directly to Zion Media. Isn't that the company he runs?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So the tool is tied directly to Zion Media, also associated with Zion Streaming, an online media ecosystem focused on fringe, deep, or alternative latter-day theology and spiritual concepts. So he's created a website where you can go and pay money and he'll get you your spiritual song and spiritual scripture and help set you up so that you can know your purpose in life.
And your patriarchal blessing. It's even better than a patriarchal blessing. I mean, this one comes from he has been known to promote it as better than a patriarchal blessing, although when he's confronted with it, I think he sort of Mott and Bailey's it.
Joseph Smith Sr. charged for those early patriarchal blessings too, didn't he?
This guy is a cross between Joseph Smith Jr. and Brian Blessed, I'm telling you. So Shane Baldwin, often referred to as the Mormon Wolf of Wall Street. Often referred to as the Mormon Wolf of Wall Street, is an LDS content creator, podcaster, and entrepreneur known for his dramatic life transformation, after he got out of prison after serving 5 years for fraud, and recent public separation from the LDS Church. He gained online prominence as the founder of Zion Media, a platform that produced pro-LDS and faith-centric content until it wasn't. it's weird because he claims he's faithful while he's not being. He's kind of like Jacob Hansen in that way.
At this point in life,
yeah.
don't you guys find it quite easy to spot a cult founder really quickly? I can spot them like this. You started reading RFM and I said, cult founder, there he is.
Yeah, and he's hawking his wares over on Mormon Book Review right now, I believe. So you want to read the background and prison sentence part, Rebecca?
Let's see. It says Baldwin's early career involved high-level financial ventures, which ultimately collapsed into legal troubles, as they so often do. He served 5 years in prison following convictions related to fraudulent business practices and securities fraud. Well, that's very serious. Following his release, he heavily leaned into his faith, utilizing his story of financial ruin and subsequent spiritual awakening as a narrative of ultimate redemption.
Yep. And then it goes on about after prison, Baldwin launched several business initiatives, including door-to-door sales. And then he ended up with this great idea of doing Zion Media. So a guy who went to prison for 5 years for fraud, defrauding people, is now saying all of this crazy stuff under his Zion Media platform. And people are buying it hook, line, and sinker because that's what Mormons do.
Well, their founder was in prison, so it's not necessarily a negative.
Absolutely, you're right, and he plays it that way, and I'm sure they just really gravitate to that. It's just, I mean, wouldn't you think that a guy who's gone to prison for 5 years or any amount of time for defrauding people might be a person you don't want to really have any, at least financial transactions or relationship with? What do you think, Bill?
As one who's done a lot of looking into founders of cult or cultish systems, almost all of the founders either learn how to scam people doing something else, or they do a bunch of other things. They try to make money and they try a bunch of different things. And eventually they figure out that starting a religion really is the easiest, most profitable way to get rich.
Absolutely, and he has stumbled upon it. This is Latter-day Lights, where they had him on with an interview where the hosts apparently are just, they're oohing and ahhing all over his story. The Mormon Wolf of Wall Street, from prison to redemption. Shane Baldwin's story, or from fraud to further fraud. Shane Baldwin's story. This was December 17th, 2023 that went up, and that's where he was called the Mormon Wolf of Wall Street. Maybe it's the Mormon Wolf of North Temple. Let's see. So here's Hal's legacy. I threw this on here because this is Hal's legacy. You know the Hal I'm talking about, the 2001 A Space Odyssey Hal? The artificial intelligence Hal? Yeah. He's now giving patriarchal blessings. He's creating songs that will help align people's spiritual soul with the universe. And we thought he was a bad guy. Any final comments? Because that's the end of that story. Except for the fact that I'll leave this out here, okay? I may go into this in a bit more detail on Friday. But Pineker's got this cat over interviewing him, and Pineker asked good questions. I'm sure he'll do a great job. It's just that I was in the live chat before the show started, and I was making a few pithy comments about his guest. And guess what? I got put in time out.
On Mormon Book Reviews, you got put in time
Mormon
out?
Book Reviews,
Oh.
yes, for making comments about his guest that he has on. And I don't know. I just wanted to say that. So I waited until I wasn't on timeout anymore. And I just texted, I got put in timeout, must protect the grifters. See you on the newscast. That was my last thing.
I'm sure you were then bound. Yeah, after that. Do we know any details of why he was excommunicated? Did you discuss that? Was it apostasy? Was it grifting? Oh, it wouldn't be that. No.
Okay, I'll try and be as I listened to his expression of it. First off, he had a no contact order. He had a trespass order put on him back in February, which means he's been made a complete nuisance of himself. I can't imagine that. Okay. And at church, and he wouldn't stop. So they said, okay, you can't be here anymore. That's what I'm guessing. Okay. And then Okay, this guy is the kind of person that apparently, if he's to be believed, the church sent him a letter saying, look, we're going to hold, they didn't even have an excommunication council that he could attend. That's the bottom line. Yeah. Don't call us, we'll call you.
That's serious.
And they sent him a letter saying, we're going to have an excommunication hearing sometime after April something, and we'll let you know what happens. So now he's going around saying, well, I think I'm excommunicated. And if I am, then it doesn't hold any water because, they didn't follow the right, the doctrine and covenants. And it's like, oh my gosh, where have you been? They haven't followed the doctrine and covenants directions about excommunication for decades now. So he will go on and do his thing and grift as many more gullible people as he can. That's the story. Okay, are we ready to go to the next story? This is going to be about, what is this about? Is this about you, Bill?
It's not about me, but yeah. I'll be giving the story. By the way, I've got a third story about the fifth Sunday lessons. We can skip that. I don't think that's that big of a deal. All right. So this story here, Utah State Representative and Attorney Merrill Nelson. You might recognize him. The AP covered him before. The Salt Lake Tribune has covered him before. This was back in, I think I've got the date covered up, but this was back in like 2021, I think. But this is the title there, Lawsuit, Utah Firm and Lawmaker Helped Mormons Hide Abuse. You know all that abuse that the Mormons have been hiding? This guy helped them. This is one of the church's lawyers at Curtin and McConkie, and he was involved in helping the church distance itself from all the abuse that's occurred. So Utah State Representative and Attorney Merrill Nelson, who is both a lawmaker and longtime attorney associated with the LDS Church and its law firm Curtin and McConkie. During a recent legislative discussion, lawmakers raised concerns about whether Nelson should recuse himself from matters involving the church because of his dual role as both a public official and a church attorney. So he is not only an attorney for the church, but he's going to be in a position to judge matters that may involve the church. Now, there doesn't necessarily need to be one can't do one and do the other, but in most situations, RFM, and I want to get your point of view here when I get to the end of this, but in most situations where it's brought to the attention of a judge that they have a conflict of interest, they would recuse themselves. So I'm curious to hear your point of view here in just a moment. But during a recent legislative discussion, lawmakers raised this concern, arguing that his legal work for the church does not prevent him from participating in legislative matters that may affect the institution, and that recusal should not be, this is what his point of view was, that his legal work for the church does not prevent him from participating in legislative matters that may affect the institution, the LDS Church, and that recusal should not be automatic simply because of his professional affiliation. The controversy comes against the backdrop of years of criticism over the church's influence in Utah politics and Nelson's prior involvement in high-profile abuse reporting litigation with the LDS Church. Nelson was previously identified as one of the attorneys who advised an LDS bishop after a church member confessed to sexually abusing their children, a case that later became the subject of national scrutiny and civil litigation. Critics argue that the overlap between church legal representation and legislative decision-making creates at least the appearance of a conflict of interest, while Nelson and his supporters maintain that attorneys should not be excluded from public service simply because they represent major organizations or clients. By the way, I thought he framed it like it was an extreme in both directions.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't he have the ability? Now, again, what he's saying is when a matter comes up that you think or it looks like it might be a conflict of interest, I'll make a personal decision about whether it really is something I can remain objective about. And then I get to decide whether I stay on it or not. And he's saying, like, he's, again, the thing it says here in this sentence, Nelson and his supporters maintain that attorneys should not be excluded from public service simply because they represent major organizations or clients. It doesn't have to be either or. He could just recuse himself from every instance that could even potentially look like it would have a conflict of interest. And that's what I would do. I think, RFM, that's what you would do. I think that's what most good, healthy, reasonable people would do. I think it's such a strange thing for him to decide that he'll be the person who makes the decision when there is a conflict of interest of whether he can handle it or not. Your thoughts, RFM, and then Rebecca.
I want to make it really clear that this guy, Merrill Nelson, is the lawyer who was at Curtin McConkie, who, when the Bisbee, Arizona case happened, and the bishop finds out that he's got a member, Adams, Paul Adams, who was abusing sexually his own daughter at home. And this would end up being not reported to the police, and another daughter being born and her being sexually abused by Paul Adams, all because this piece of shit on the screen right there, when the bishop called up to ask him, as the bishop is required to do, what do I do? I've just received this report. And this guy here told him that you don't report it to the police, when actually the Arizona statute does not say that. Repeat, the Arizona statute does not say that. He either lied to him or he's grossly incompetent. And either way, he sure as hell should not be being advanced to the Utah Supreme Court. Those are my thoughts.
Yeah, he has an interesting resume. My co-host Landon and I have kind of been looking into it because it is such a confusing issue. It's literally almost the textbook definition of a conflict of interest, I feel, in a lot of ways. So let's see. He worked in South Korea for Amazon. Then he came back to Utah. He was called as a mission president for 3 years. And then he came back and he worked as the lead counsel for the church with the Pathways program. So again, that does seem like an unusual resume to end up where he's ended up right now. But I feel like Utah is kind of the capital of conflict of interest. It reminds me of Heber Valley. I'll just mention temple building really quickly. When the residents were, they were involved in the suit, trying to get everything stopped. The county council there that voted just across the board, yes, change all the lighting ordinances. Yes, change everything. One of them was standing next to President Nelson with a golden shovel at the groundbreaking. To me, that's a conflict of interest. If you are going to change everything in your county to allow something to come in and you are there next to the religious leader with a golden shovel. And that was something the residents, they were like, I don't understand this. These people seem to be involved with the church, and yet they're make decisions seemingly very favorable to the church. Again, this is only my opinion, but the optics are there in Utah a lot. And this is just another example.
And I'll just say, okay, on the matter of the law, judges do not recuse themselves when they really have a conflict of interest that they know, okay? Judges are supposed to recuse themselves when there is even the appearance that they could have a conflict of interest. That's what the rule is.
Yeah.
So, I would think that anytime the church came up before him, it would look like he had a conflict of interest. And so why don't you just say the right thing and bow out? By the way, who appointed this guy?
Spencer Cox.
Spencer, what the hell are you doing? Don't you know who this guy is? You should put him in prison, not on the Supreme Court.
Spencer, I used to think of Spencer as one of the good guys. Somebody who was a little more nuanced and trying to sort of figure out a middle way of handling things. But there's been a lot of stuff that's come out with him lately that raises my eyebrows. I will just say, if folks have any concerns here, I'm putting in the live chat how you can reach Spencer Cox to let him know your thoughts. If you live in Utah and you want to share with the politician who represents you and has has extended this this nomination. I just want to say too, the original article down there in the bottom, LDS Church lawyer tells Utah lawmakers he won't step aside from church cases. Again,
And the legislature's okay with that? Why don't they boot him right then?
yeah. Here's the thing though, right? In a religion that dominates the state, where 9 out of 10 politicians in the Utah Senate are Mormon, and in a state where the church essentially takes up half the population, if he were to recuse himself from every instance that has any connection to Mormonism, he may not have very many cases he sits on, but maybe that's enough that you shouldn't be in weighing in on judicial matters as one who also represents the LDS Church in Utah.
I'm not familiar with the Supreme Court of Utah's docket, but I imagine that would be a very small percentage of the cases.
Yeah, but even the ones that connect to the LDS Church, he is refusing to automatically recuse himself and says he'll make the decision case by case.
Mm-hmm. What else would you expect from him? I want you to understand, if you don't already, that guy in that picture, that Merrill guy, Merrill Nelson, that guy right there, he is responsible for the continued sexual abuse of that little Adams girl in Arizona and all the sexual abuse on the sister that was born after the phone call was made and who was perpetrated upon. That's on that guy right there. And
Allegedly.
they're going to put him on the Supreme Court in Utah.
Allegedly.
Allegedly.
He's never denied it to my knowledge because it's true and it was proven. These are not guesses. These are facts. And that guy looks like his soul. All right. Now, for something hopefully a little bit more lighthearted.
Wow, I hope so. Yeah, that was a lot. A conflict of interest, though, is something we see all the time in temple building. There are LDS members on city councils, city planners, city managers, and they never recuse themselves because nobody can prove a financial cause, right? They're not benefiting financially. They don't understand that LDS people have taken an oath, right? So a lot of times things pass because you have LDS members doing what they do. So, all right. Yeah, this is very interesting, Bill. I'll have you play just a few minutes. What I want to say is the word Mormon is coming back like a speeding train. We've talked about it before, but last week, more than ever, I have seen it. And I want you guys to beware and start watching for me and sending me stuff. These are the Paris twins.
However costly.
Oh, gosh. The Paris twins, they are interviewing people. Here we go.
That was close, Bill. That could have been
Yeah,
dangerous.
that was scary.
I'm a Mormon.
I'm a Mormon.
I'm a Mormon. I'm a Mormon.
I'm a Mormon.
I'm a Mormon.
I'm a Mormon.
We are Mormon. I'm a Mormon. We are Mormon.
I'm Mormon. I'm a Mormon. I am Mormon. I'm a Mormon. I'm a Mormon.
I am a Mormon.
Okay, it goes on and on. You can stop. And at the end, the
Why are they
host
doing
who's interviewing everybody, one of the Paris twins, he says, "We are Mormons and we are members and we are the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints." I was really surprised. I had to look at the date on that. I'm like, is this current? Of course it's current. It's the Paris twins. If we go to the slides.
What are Paris twins? What are you talking about?
They are two very attractive young men who are out there interviewing, making content. They're social media influencers for the church, and they have outrageous French accents, and all the girls are going crazy. Anyway, yeah. So here's Jasmine. I came across this. Do you catch what I'm seeing there, RFM?
Speaking of girls going crazy.
Yeah,
it's
girls
Jasmine.
going crazy. Yeah. Do you catch what I'm seeing there? Where is it? It's so small I can't see it. There's a place where she says LDS/Mormon. There it
It's
is,
a
right there in
comma,
the
but
second
yes.
line. Yeah.
Yes.
Do you see that? Isn't that interesting? LDS/Mormon. You would not see that. Even I think last year. And I will say in that video that you just showed in the comments, like 500 comments, a lot of people are like, you're not Mormon. You're members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Other people are saying proud to be Mormon. Somebody criticized my take on that video by saying those are all young people. How would they know? those people should know more than ever. They have absolutely spent their entire growing up years under the "we do not say Mormon," haven't they? What year
Mhm.
was that? 2018? They've spent all of their growing up years not saying Mormon, and yet now they are choosing to say Mormon. So I'm telling you, it's a thing. Here's another video. A lovely mom who's kind of off camera there. She's taking her kids to church. She's starting a new thing. Meet the Mormons. She's going to show you what church is like. Here we are. We're the Mormons, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. I'm telling you, the word is coming back. I want everybody to get out there and send me anything that you find.
It's like President Nelson never lived.
It's like what is it? The words of old prophets, like old comic books and classic cars. That's right. So it really got me thinking about the word Mormon. It got me thinking about John's lawsuit. And I really feel the crux behind it is getting that dang word back, getting that hashtag back. And I had ChatGPT kind of look at Mormon influencers like the Paris twins, people that put out content. They do not shy away from hashtag Mormon or Mormon church or Mormon member or Mormon ward. They use it because they know that is what people are searching for. They also use latter day, this and that. You can freeze on this at some point if you want, but the influencers themselves understand SEO wise. We all said it back when they tried to do away with it. That word lives on forever. And I believe that the LDS Church wants it back. Or should I say the Mormon Church? Now, this is a little graph that I came up with. I posted it a while ago. Let me see if I can get a little closer here on this. This has to do with what does the LDS Church claim at Ask Mormon Stories and John DeLynn to do to avoid a lawsuit? And to me, this is the whole key, proving that what they really want is that word Mormon. So, of course, when they talked about mediation, the church put out a statement that said, why was it unsuccessful? It said the primary issue is the ongoing confusion about whether Mormon Stories is affiliated with the church. To address that, the church proposed a simple solution, a brief disclaimer that the podcast is not affiliated with or endorsed by the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This is a common and straightforward way to help audiences understand the source of content. That step was not addressed, which is a lie. As a result, the likelihood of confusion remains, and the church moved forward to protect the trademark with legal action. So based on some interviews that John did, I tried to lay it all out, what the church asked, and then what was just too far, and what John or any reasonable person who runs a podcast or has a presence on social media would do. So the church said, change your logo from blue to something else. Right away, John DeLynn immediately changed his logo to orange. The church says, incorporate a disclaimer that Mormon Stories is not affiliated with the LDS Church or all the Mormon Stories assets. Right away, John DeLynn incorporated the disclaimer into the description of all of their assets. Request from the church, take the Christus out of the Mormon Stories YouTube banner. Right away, John DeLynn immediately took the Christus out of his banner. Other request, take any copyrighted images being used on Mormon Stories thumbnails out. Immediately, John DeLynn went back 3 years and took out anything he thought might be a copyright issue. Now, these things don't have a lot to do with the word Mormon. They all have to do with, the light rays, the color, the Christus, the copyrighted images. Now, we'll look over here, the things that they ask him to do, according to John, according to what he remembers from mediation and has described on other podcasts. These things all do have a lot to do with the word Mormon. And these, if you know anything about SEO or, hashtags or being an influencer, you're going to understand how just beyond the pale these are. So these are the things that they ask him to do. Include a legible disclaimer in the text of the YouTube banner. So when you go to Mormon Stories, there's a huge, ticker tape. We are not the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. John and his team said that's too much. Change the Mormon Stories logo to read Ex-Mormon Stories with Dr. John DeLynn and use only specific fonts approved by the church. So they're still saying you can use the word Mormon, but it must be ex-Mormon. You don't get that word Mormon anymore. People can't search you using that word Mormon, right? Third thing, include an audio disclaimer at the beginning of each Mormon Stories episode. So he would have to verbally say, welcome to Mormon Stories. We are not affiliated with the church. I mean, how many of us start out our podcast by telling somebody what we are not, right? But they have to create the distance. And again, these are all things that John and his team said, this is ridiculous. Next thing, a disclaimer must be repeated every 15 to 20 minutes throughout each entire Mormon Stories episode. Have to stop, have to play a tape or have to say verbally, we are not part of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Renounce any trademark rights to Mormon story's name. Can't use Mormon anymore. Again, I feel it's because they're trying to claim it. Never file for any trademarks on the Mormon story's name. You can never own any part of that word Mormon or Mormon stories ever again. Never challenge any of the LDS trademarks, right? These things are just beyond if you know what they're asking here. And finally, never create a project again on the internet that uses the word Mormon. So these are things that John and his team said, this is just too much. And to me, this indicates that they really are trying to get that word Mormon back over on their side. I don't know. What do you guys think? I think it's interesting. I've just seen it creep in everywhere. And when I went over those listed demands that had to do with no trademarks and never again creating anything, I just thought, are they undoing all the good works that President Nelson did?
It strikes me that they're maybe actually helping John's case here. In the video, for instance, and I think the church does it this way as well, the church is allowing members to refer to themselves as Mormons. But when it came time at the end of that clip for them to explain what church they're part of, I'm Mormon, we're Mormon, he's Mormon, they're Mormon, we're members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And I think the church, in its use that way, if it has any connection, if there could be demonstrated there's any connection to these videos and the other things like Jasmine, for instance, what the church is doing is giving approval that outside of it as an entity, all the people who have experience in Mormonism can call themselves Mormons, but that the church should be referred to as the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And that would seem to indicate that the word Mormon is a general term that everyone has potential ownership of.
No, that's a great observation. It's the best of both worlds. A person can be a Mormon, but you're a Mormon who is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. So it's kind of a workaround, but you're right. It puts it back in the realm of it's just common usage. RFM, what do you think?
Well, I think, first off, I would never have agreed to anything until it was resolved as to what will be done and what won't be done. Okay. Because when you run out and immediately comply with conditions, what you end up doing is taking them off the table as chips to negotiate with later. It doesn't seem like it would be that way. You would think you'd say, oh, well, I just did these 4 things and you've got all that's just not psychologically the way it works. You don't do anything until an agreement is struck as to what will be done and what will not be done. Otherwise, you can end up in a position like this. Now, the other thing I think about it, these are ridiculous requests over there in red. Absolutely ridiculous. The thought that comes to me is, who the hell do these guys think they even are? The church is obviously too big for its britches. It's time for it to be cut down to size. And it's times like this that I am proud to be radio-free Mormon. That's what I have to say.
Solidarity. And I will say, I see on the slides, my story's next. I'd like to save that till next week because it's a little bit longer and it's an awesome story. So maybe you guys look through what's left since we're kind of at the end.
Oh,
maybe
sorry.
William
Hang on.
Clayton.
I'm going to remove it.
I think maybe
Sorry
that might
about
be the one. What do you think, Bill? That's a good one.
You guys,
Timely.
whatever pieces you want us to talk about, great, RFM. I'll just say I hope that when I get done with the newscast, I think I'll write a message to Spencer Cox, and I hope that folks in the audience will as well.
Very good. Now here's going to be, I think this is the last story for tonight.
Yeah.
Great. I'll just be really quick here. All right. Thank you. So I just wanted to give an update. Last week on the Mormon Newscast, we talked about the William Clayton journals, how Jeremy Hoop said he had them, that he was writing a book called The Clayton Conundrum. And I had heard through the grapevine that he was planning to release these sort of little by little as he talked about them. I had that from a source outside of his podcast, but I'll just note he dropped them this week. I don't know if it was because of some of the criticism we gave or some of the criticism that was coming from other places. But in the next slide, this is the YouTube thumbnail for that episode. I went and listened to that today.
Oh, he released all of them instead of doing it piecemeal.
He did. And I actually took them, uploaded them to Mormon Discussions library, because when you go to his site, you have to give your email and other things. I put them in the show notes down below in our YouTube description. You won't have to give him an email. You just copy the link, paste it in the URL, and you can read the William Clayton journals. I'll just note here, the main thing that Jeremy Hoop said last week in his acknowledging that he had the William Clayton journals, one, he gave sort of an ambiguous story of how he got them. He goes into deep detail in this podcast about how he got them. It's actually through a middle person who was a medical professional or a member in the church history department. That person freely gave this middleman the documents, and then when he passed away, he allowed Jeremy to come forward with them. So I'll note that. The second thing was that Jeremy claimed that there was nothing in the William Clayton journals that supported polygamy, that while the church had held them back, he didn't understand why people were worried about this, because there's really nothing in there. And I just wanted to note that there are things in there. So whether you believe me or not, whether you believe Jeremy Hoop or not, I don't care. But at least know that there is another side with people saying there are things in the journals. I'll give you one example. April 27th, 1843, William Clayton records that Sister Margaret Moon was sealed up by the priesthood by the president, and that's almost certainly Joseph Smith, and capital M to me, married to me. And I'll just note, Joseph Smith is the president performing the sealing. The language is not ordinary marriage language. Margaret Moon was being sealed to William Clayton through a priesthood ordinance. By the way, William Clayton is already married to a woman named Ruth, and I believe that Margaret is Ruth's sister. And this occurs in April 1843, right as Nauvoo polygamy is really hitting its hot spot. And I'll just show the next slide here. Margaret Moon. Notice there on the left, top left, this is the church's biography of her. Married William Clayton as a plural wife. I'll just note there at the bottom, Joseph Smith Paper's footnote. About 3 weeks earlier, on the 27th of April, 1843, Margaret Moon, the sister of Clayton's wife, Ruth Moon Clayton, was sealed up by the priesthood as the first plural wife of William Clayton. And again, he has a tendency to put letters in places of words or initials in places of names, or leave certain things out so as to keep a degree of secrecy and confidentiality with the things he's doing around polygamy. But almost certainly Joseph Smith, the president of the church, is marrying Margaret Moon to William Clayton. Again, this is 27th April, 1843. There are other things as well. If you want to pause the screen, you can read them, but these are other references that are in the William Clayton journals that I think point, when you look at them as a whole specifically, they seem to point directly at Joseph Smith being the founder of polygamy, and that polygamy is going on in Nauvoo with Joseph Smith's awareness. Here's another one that you can look at. You can pause that. You can read those. But I'll take that off the screen now and just note, I think it's interesting that they're out. Several people who deal with history have had access to the William Clayton journals, but us in the general public have not. I'm curious to see if the originals match these, but even with the transcriptions that we have, it's a great thing that it's come forward, and I'm glad that Jeremy has finally shared them publicly while having held them for a long time.
Are these supposed to be the complete transcript of the journals? Because it is not a resolution of the pages, correct?
It's not a resolution of the pages. It's not the actual journals themselves. It is a transcript. And so until we see the actual pages photocopied themselves onto the Joseph Smith Papers project, we don't have the ability to know for sure if everything is in there. And even Jeremy indicates that there's a chance that in his mind, some minor things were left off. He has one example of a thing he knows was left off. And it's like where someone put markings on the page and the transcriber didn't carry over the aftermarks into the transcript. So until we see the actual pages from the journals, I'm gonna hold out a conclusion until we see them.
How would he know that unless he had seen the pages?
Yeah, I think it's because of the middleman and his relationship with a member of the church history department. And again, I've got his name, but I don't have it handy on me. But that person had quite a few lengthy conversations about the William Clayton journals, and so there were details that came up in a conversation between someone interested in church history and someone dealing hands-on in church history.
Yeah. I'll take all this with a grain of salt, but thank you for giving us the rundown as far as Jeremy Hoopa has given it to us.
And can
Rebecca,
I just
I
say
wanted to-
that
Yeah.
I was going to say that, we now know that everything's delayed, right? For all of us to get our hands on it. I mean, that just came out. Look at the trajectory. Do you really think this is going to be the journals themselves? Announced in 2017. 8 years, editors transcribing, verifying, annotating. 8 years, right? Then the transcript is submitted to Yale in 2025. It's supposed to come out early 2026. It doesn't. And now we're being told next year. I don't know. I think these other versions floating around there and the interpretation of these other journals are going to get a lot of play before whatever Yale is putting out with the church gets out there. So we'll see.
It's funny they announced that in 2017, because also in 2017, President Dallin H. Oaks said, "We've been hiding that for a long time."
Yeah.
And they have been. They've been hiding these journals for so long. And it's going to take them how many? 8 years and going and counting for them to prepare the text so that it can be published and read. And what the heck is taking so long? I don't know. But I'm suspicious. And I got a question for you, Bill. I might understand that Jeremy Hoopa told his audience that he had this transcript, and he did have the transcript, and he'd read through it. He'd been reading through it for months. He's even written a book on it. So he's thoroughly familiar with the transcript of the William Clayton journals. And yet he told his audience, in spite of what you found and showed this audience, that there's nothing about polygamy in the William Clayton journals. How does that make sense?
Yeah. In the first episode, when he says he has them, he informs the audience that there's nothing to worry about in here that would link Joseph Smith to polygamy. I think there are at least a dozen instances where it can clearly be shown that polygamy is happening in Nauvoo and that Joseph Smith is aware of everything that Clayton is writing down and doing.
Yeah, and John Turner has gone through some of those other documents. And if you read his book, that's definitely his take on it. So I do wonder, I mean, now that this exciting news, according to Jeremy, that there is no polygamy, we don't need to worry. I do wonder if this is one of the reasons that Michelle is back on the scene and is reposting her episodes, to support that narrative, to show scholarship around that narrative. I think they're thinking it's a renaissance.
Do not use the word scholarship and Michelle Stone in the same sentence, please.
Oh gosh, I'm sorry. I forgot your rule. You have so many, RFM.
But they're easy to remember.
Scholarly-ish.
Ish. What's it?
Scholarly light.
Scholarly light.
L-I-T-E. Okay. Well, anyway, does anybody else have anything else they want to say? I think we have to do what's on the horizon. There's something about a cruise coming up. Is that a thing? Is that happening? I think it is.
It's happening. Lots of people are going. Ton of fun to be had. September 13th through September 20th. Those beautiful people there at the bottom, those influencers will be on the cruise. You can rub elbows with them. RFM, Rebecca, myself will be there. And you can go there to the link below, khexethtravel.com, and you /post-mormon-celebration-cruise. And you can sign up and be on the cruise too. Don't miss out. This is going to be a ton of fun. We're so excited. We're excited for the folks that are down there, and they're excited too. So this is going to be a great time.
Awesome. What do you have coming up tomorrow, Rebecca, on Mormonish?
That's right. Every Tuesday. First, I would like to say really quickly, when you were talking about the judge bill, and I had one of my sources give me his resume, my source gave me another one of the candidates' resumes. So that was not the history of that judge. All the judges, everybody who was a candidate seemed to be LDS. So we were kind of looking at all of them. So disclaimer right there. Anyway, what is coming up on Mormonish Tuesday night? The episode is called Why We Think What We Do, Why We Think What We Think and Do What We Do, right? Are we even in control? And this discussion is kind of based around the book Mistakes Were Made, but Not by Me. You may recognize that title. It is a fantastic book. I have two returning guests, Kendall Christensen and Cameron Stringham, and we're going to talk about why the heck we do things. And then maybe Kyle McKay should read this book. Why did I do that? Why did I say that, right? It's more complicated than you think. So that'll be on Tuesday at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. And then on Thursday, I am plugging along with my series on authorship of the Book of Mormon, sole author versus other theories out there. We are on episode 2. We're going to be talking about some more word print and the 3 voice model. These are short episodes for us, like an
How long
hour.
are they?
And they're like an hour and 15 minutes. They're short. So they're
How
kind
many,
of a bite-sized
how many
piece.
episodes are there going to be in this series, Rebecca?
10.
10
There has to
hours?
be. Yeah, 10 hours. I already put out 2 like 4-hour episodes. They were too long. People wanted more information. So I've chopped them up into little bite-sized pieces. And again, I will say, this is really interesting data. I am reading it into the record. That is my motivation. I'm reading it into the record. You all can do with it what you may, but I'm reading it into the record. So there you go. We tend to do that on Mormonish, right? We have interesting people on. So
It doesn't sound
that's
like you're
coming up.
backing this theory very strongly.
Oh, no, I have my own opinions, but I try to be, just put the information out there, and I try to host the guest and let them talk about what they'd like to talk about. And this particular guest and his information has gotten a lot of people riled up, a lot of people interested, but it never hurts to put this information out. I've never seen this particular theory presented in such a clear and concise way. So if you're ever curious about, what the heck would Sydney have had to do with any of this, like everybody thought up to 1940, you can check out this series. It'll be interesting. So that'll be on Thursday sometime. I always have to work it around whatever John puts out. So it'll be on Thursday at some point. And that's all we have.
Okay. I won't ask any more questions. Thank you very much, Rebecca. Wednesday, we've got this thing coming up. It's going to be great. As soon as I can I put it up there? This is the one it's supposed to be. Here we go. The Book of Mormon, a product of its times. This is going to be so good because what we're doing is, remember Alexander Campbell, that guy who was a minister back when the Book of Mormon came out, and he read the dang thing and he said, the funny thing about the Book of Mormon is that it seems to answer every religious controversy that's going on right now in the same place it comes out. What are the odds? I'm paraphrasing. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to do a top 10. It may go longer than that. I'm not sure. We're still in the process of researching this puppy. But at least a top 10 list of all the religious disputes and controversies that the Book of Mormon answers, in order to show, as I've said a number of times, that there has never been a book that is more obviously the product of its times than the Book of Mormon. And by that I mean the early 19th century in the United States of America. And that's what we're going to prove here. The apologists are trying to finesse this or give a hazy sort of generalized kind of parallel to something in the ancient world. What we're going to show is concrete evidence after evidence after evidence that the Book of Mormon did not come from the ancient world. It came from New York in 1829.
Right there in his backyard, huh?
Are you going to hit my favorite soapbox item of infant baptism?
That's always the first one. It actually probably be number 3. Because there's some that are even more obvious than that. But yes, infant baptism, Mormon chapter 8. Go ahead.
Exactly. These are the concerns of the day. Campbellite ministers, such as Sydney or others, would absolutely be concerned with these. So I'm watching. It's going to be great.
Remember when we talked with Patrick Mason about this subject, Bill? And I asked him, this is when we got to interview him for like 4 hours, and only 1 hour, the first hour, didn't get dumped.
By the way, I'll just say, strangest thing in the world, because you and I both recorded it and we both lost audio at like the 52-minute mark.
Yes.
But we were both recording separately on our own end. Such a strange thing.
That's why we got rid of that recorder software. That's when we said we've done with you. But in the part that remained, in the part a year later, it was still hanging out there. We had been trying, by which I mean Bill had been trying to get a second redo with Patrick Mason because of what happened, and he was trying, but there was trouble scheduling. So anyway, finally a year or so later, I say, hey, Bill, this first hour's been hanging out there. Can I put it up as an RFM? He says, sure, go ahead. So I did. In that, we talk about this infant baptism and how the Book of Mormon answers all these problems of Joseph Smith's day. And Patrick Mason is actually trying to say, well, we don't know. We don't know that the ancient Native Americans, in Book of Mormon times, well, maybe they were having the same dispute too. Do you remember that, Bill?
Yeah, we covered a lot of various things in that, but
he wasn't even convincing himself when he said that.
That is utterly ridiculous.
No.
In the name of Jesus, for the remission of sins.
Watch some Dr. Lundwall episodes. You'll see what they were really doing during that era, and it wasn't infant baptism.
But the reason I bring that up is because the improbability of that will be taken into impossibility when we line up at least 10 of these examples. To think that all the ancient Nephites had all of these exact same kind of controversies that they needed answers to that were going on in Joseph Smith's neighborhood. So that's going to be Wednesday. I'm looking forward to that one. Beyond that, priesthood restoration timeline. What's that about, Bill?
So this is the next in a series of a logical deconstruction of Mormonism. Priesthood restoration timeline. Of course, the center point here is always David Whitmer and his pamphlet, I think it's All Believers in Christ, where he talks about how late the priesthood was in being discussed versus when they claimed it was restored. We'll share all the data around that issue in 6 to 10 minutes, Thursday morning at 9 a.m.
Thank you for that. Friday night, Mormonism After Dark. I think Colby's going to be joining me. Everybody loves Colby. He's everybody's rando. So he'll be joining me. I don't have a slide with his face on it yet. I'll put one together and I'll get it published so that everybody can find it and join us 8:00 p.m. Mountain Time on Friday night. And after that, oh my gosh, Radio Free Mormon. This is every week for me. This is incredible. I know you both are busy too. It's just sometimes it's just like overwhelming. And I'm going to be producing a Radio Free Mormon, which will go up Saturday night. It's going to be great. Take my word for it. Okay, that is the end of this. And just in time at the 2-hour and 12-minute mark. Thank you so much for joining us tonight, Rebecca Bibliotheca and Bill Reel. Here's your chance to say anything else you want to say before we sign off the air.
I got to find a computer tech. That's all I got to say. I got to stop having these dang glitches. The last 2 things I've done with you, RFM, have been horrible. When I phoned in, I apologize, everybody, for that. We were trying to break something. So I got to get my act together. That's all I'll say.
It's okay.
Only 2 fast things. Consider writing Spencer Cox. And, I forget the other one. So that's good enough for me, my friend.
Turns out Spencer Cox may be a dick. Who would have thought it? Okay, everybody. See you next week on next Monday at 6:00 p.m. Mountain Time for another edition of the Mormon Newscast. Good night, everybody.
That's a wrap for this week's edition of the Mormon Newscast. We appreciate you tuning in and sharing this time with us. Keep the conversation going and stay informed on all things Mormonism. Until next week, wishing you peace and joy. See you next Monday at 6 p.m. on the Mormon Newscast.